Hi, good evening, and welcome to the program. Slightly different tone today because I'm going to talk about the brutal murder of this 80-year-old man, Bhim Kohl, murdered by two children. They weren't even really teenagers when they did it. One was 13 and one was about 9 or 10. Shockingly, one was a girl, the other was a boy. The boy racially abused him and then smacked him and beat him to death with his own shoe. 80 years old, just walking his dog. He called him the P word. Um, and today they got sentenced. And in soft justice Britain, get this. The boy has been sent to a young offenders unit for 7 years. 7 years for taking an old man's life. And the girl, well, she's not going to go to prison or young offenders at all. She's effectively got a community service order. She's got a quarantine where she's got a curfew. She's got to stay in for 6 months. But the judge said, I think it'd do you more damage than good. Well, I'm not going to focus too much on the sentencing, if I'm honest with you, because I want to talk about how have we got to a position in this country where it's so broken that an 80-year-old man gets beaten to death whilst he's walking his dog. Bhim Kohl, his name. You've seen it in the news. Murdered in the park by two teenagers. One is now 15, the other's 13. One's a boy, one's a girl. And the girl filmed it. She filmed it. I mean, this isn't just tragic. It's the collapse of British morality. And I'm asking you tonight, why has it happened and how are we going to stop it happening again? You might want to talk about a sentence and say the sentence should be longer, and that's legitimate, and we'll talk about that. But there's a breakdown in society, isn't there? Britain is broken. On top of that, one of the men who might have been able to fix it, the chairman of Reform, if you don't know this, has just resigned. Zia Yusuf. He's had enough. It's all over this row with their new MP asking Keir Starmer yesterday about whether or not he agreed with banning the burqa. Now he's gone. He was a Muslim, of course. He did split the party, although you can't take away from him the fact that Yusuf also got many, many more new members for Reform UK. So if you want to talk about that as well, throw it in. Let's go back to Bhim Kohl. Good morning, good afternoon, should I say. Welcome to the Jon Gaunt Show. If you're watching live, that's brilliant. If you're listening on a podcast, super. You might just now be watching it on replay. Doesn't matter how, you can still comment. Write your comments in the bottom and I'll read them out as we go along. So, Bhim, he was out taking a walk. He did it every night. That's all. A quiet, elderly old man. We see him all the time, don't we, in our parks? Just enjoying the outdoors until he was ambushed by two children. They're now 15. The boy's 15, the girl's 13. I think the boy was 13 and I think the girl was 11. The boy attacked him brutally, called him the P word. You know which word I'm talking about. Meanwhile, she recorded the whole thing on their phones. He effectively kicked him to death and left him to die there. His relatives found him and took him to hospital, but he never recovered from the injuries. I mean, what a horrific way to die. The family are now very, very angry because they say the sentences aren't long enough. And of course, the judge had to go with, here we go, the sentencing guidelines. Now, I never liked the way the Bulger killers got so long and how they've been vilified, because you've got to look at the background. Of course you have. But there's also justice. There's got to be a balance, hasn't there? Do you agree with me? I'd love your views on this one tonight. It's a bit more of a difficult one to get our heads round. And it has only just happened. The sentences were delivered maybe an hour or two ago. Police are now saying they're investigating whether this is part of a pattern, part of a string of attacks on older people. They say they don't think it's out and out racism, but that's not what the family think. So if this crime doesn't send a chill through your spine, then I don't think you've got a spine. This should concern all of us. I mean, what has happened to Britain? How did we get here? A country where children kill an old man who's walking his dog, not an old man who's done anything to them. They'd been abusing him, evidently, for several weeks, but he's just an old man walking his dog. So let's not dress this up. I know why this has happened. And it's not just about these two young thugs. This is the result of years of soft discipline, no discipline in schools, broken homes, and a justice system that's lost its flipping spine or backbone. Do you agree with me? The moment we took competitive sport out of schools, the moment we took away the cane, the moment you couldn't raise your voice to a child, this is where the moral decline started. I'll go further. I think, and I'm one of the people who gave up on it, church, the end of Sunday school, the thing that used to bind us all together. I think that's part of it. But we don't live as a community now, do we? What do you think? What do you think? How are we going to change our society to make it that old men don't get beaten to death? He had slider, those slipper type things on. That's what he got smacked around the head for with. Now, of course, he was old. He was frail. He was 80. So it would bound to have affected him perhaps more than it would you or I. The judge also said in the boy's case that he had behaved himself whilst he'd been in care waiting for the trial. But he said he does come from a home with certain difficulties. And of course, he mentioned mental illness. Where were the parents? Where are you if your parents, when your kids are out and about? As I say, it's years of soft discipline, broken homes, one-parent families, a justice system that's lost its backbone. And by only giving them 7 years in prison or in a young offenders institute, because he's now 15, and by not naming them, because they can't, because they're children, and the girl not even going to any form of custodial sentence, what signal does it might be what's in the sentencing guidelines, but what signal does that send to every other kid in the country? It's okay to be violent. That's the signal it sends. And that kind of sums up why we're here. We have told kids they can do whatever they want. We've told them all their rights, but we've clearly not instilled in them their responsibilities. So kids think they can do whatever they want, and that's how we end up with an 80-year-old man beaten to death whilst he's walking his dog. Am I right, or am I going too far? I want your views. Let's take some views, and then we'll come back. Don't forget, because we've got this breaking news, and I'm quite capable of dealing with that at the same time, let's talk about the chairman of Reform resigning. Is this just typical Farage that, again, his party's falling to bits? But let's keep on this for the moment. Lisa Carvel, I find the child filming the beating more offensive than what Lucy Connolly tweeted. Well, of course, but Lucy went down on the sentencing guidelines for 31 months. We know why that happened, because of Starmer calling everybody far-right thugs. It's not right, Lisa. Of course it's not right. And when you see a sentence like today, the only mitigating factor being this was a young girl. It wasn't a housewife. I think she should have got a custodial sentence, personally, on the facts of the case. But I can see where the judge was perhaps coming from. But it doesn't send out the right message, does it? Ronnie Hurst says, I wonder how they've been brought up. Yeah, Ronnie, but it's a bit like the adolescence TV program. You think you're bringing your kids up correctly, but what other influences are working on them? We don't know. We don't know. What we need to do is go back to proper discipline. We need to go back to the fact that if you're a parent and if your kid got in trouble and say, when I was a kid, my dad would have beaten 7 barrels of you-know-what out of me if I came back from school and said I got the cane. I'm not talking about violence against kids, but I'm just talking about the ultimate deterrent. I'm just talking about discipline, wearing a uniform, all those things that we did as kids. But see, I know I'm sounding like an old fart, but how on earth do we get on top of law and order? John Abbott says all part of divide and rule. Don't really understand that, my friend, but thank you. I'm 70. I walk my dog every night. I'm gutted for the family, says Ronnie Hurst. So am I. I almost cried when I saw her. I was upstairs and I'm just doing my work, getting ready for this, and I saw it break on my phone. And then the family came out and spoke. I think it was his daughter. You just got to feel for them. They're just an ordinary family. Bhim Kohl's family, just ordinary. And he's been brutally murdered. Of course, the sentence was manslaughter, not murder. And Darren Seals picked up on that. He says, this is murder to me, not manslaughter. How on earth are we going to get on top of this? Nigel Gordon, Tin Pot Nigel says, discipline and respect is all gone. Blame the parents. I was calling himself that because I had to go at him. Nigel, drop it. We've moved on. All right, mate. You just made a very good point. Discipline and respect is all gone. Blame the parents. Well, generally, yeah, I don't think people know how to parent anymore because I don't think they were parented. I think we're now at the second, maybe the third generation of people who haven't been brought up properly, who are now bringing up kids. Look at him there. Isn't it? It's just terrible. It could be your granddad. Just disgusting. Sadly, I can't see it getting any better, John, says Jackie Ward on YouTube. Facebook, because woke parents will not discipline their children, let alone allow anyone else to do so. Yeah, you're right. In the old days, if you came back home and you said you'd been in trouble at school, your mum and dad would go mad, or they'd go up to school to congratulate the teacher for giving you a rollicking or giving you the slipper or giving you the cane. Nowadays, they'd be up the school screaming odds, don't you dare talk to my son like that, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's another part of the problem. This is just my thoughts. And as I say, this has been brought down today, this particular sentence. And maybe I'm being over emotional because it really did upset me. But do you feel that Britain is broken? And if you do, how on earth are we going to fix it? Let's go on to the sentence. Because you would think such an horrific act would come with some serious punishment. But no. The girl, who's now 13, she didn't take part in the actual attack, although she's obviously from the mobile phone text messages to each other, was helping to wind up the situation. But she didn't physically attack the man, the 80-year-old. But she's not going to go to prison. She's not even going to prison. She's got this kind of community order for 2 or 3 years, and 6 months she's not allowed out of the house effectively. And the judge said, well, if I sent you to custody, it'd probably affect your whole life. Well, I don't want to be rude, Judge, but hasn't it affected the whole of Bhim's life? He's dead, or Bhim's family. They will live with this forever. And this is the case always in this country. It seems that our legal system nowadays, and even the police, the upper echelons, not the boys and girls on the beat, they take the views of the person who did it, the perpetrator, and their future more seriously than the person whose life has been stolen from them. It reminded me of Helen Newlove. Do you remember her? She's now Baroness Newlove. Her husband, Gary, it's about 18 years ago, he'd had some yobbos outside his front door for 2 or 3 nights on the trot. We've all been in this situation. On the third night, he loses it and goes outside and confronts them. They kicked him and stabbed him to death in his own front garden. I remember I was one of the first people to interview Helen. And of course, since then, she's become like the victim's spokesperson or whatever in the justice system. She was just an ordinary northern working class woman. 2 daughters, stolen from both of them, their father. And again, those guys, they only got 15, 16 years. They've just been let out recently. Where's the justice? Where is the justice? Why don't we put the victim first? It's like the grooming gangs. We should be concentrating on the girls, the women, the survivors, not the filthy bastards who did the crimes. Are you with me? The boy who led the attack, who beat Bhim to death on the floor of the park, he got 7 years. Just 7 years. He's going to be out by the time he's 25. At the latest, 7 plus 15, he'll be out, 23, 24. That's not justice. That's broken Britain. And it's symptomatic, and we can't just blame Starmer. Previous governments the same. And the whole idea that you can't discipline kids. I'll tell you where some of this started, and tell me if you agree. When we started calling them young people. Oh, the young people. No, they're children. And this ridiculous idea of let them vote at 16. No, they're kids. And that means that if you're the parent, you've got a responsibility. So I would like to see the parents of future thugs like this in court as well, in the dock. I always remember this about the killers of Jamie Bulger, and I covered that story massively. And in the subsequent years, and I've spoken to both of the main detectives and the main guy, Albert Kirby, I think his name was, who investigated it. And when you listen to what they have to say, and then I listened to one of the defense solicitors for one of the lads who'd done it, complicated stories about broken childhoods. But have things got any better? I'm not sure. You walk down the street. I told you the other day at Coventry Railway Station when those girls who were obviously at the university wouldn't get out of the way for some elderly people, myself included, who were trying to get out of the lift. You know, the good manners is you stand back, don't you, to let people out first before you go in. Not this girl. And when she was reprimanded for it, she was just foul-mouthed. She was like a docker. Sorry, that's disrespectful to dockers. I just think we've been heading towards here for ages. And the sentence today, I'm sorry, is just another insult to Bhim Kohl, 80 years old, his family, and every law-abiding person in this country. This is broken Britain, where violent kids become killers, and they still get to go home by the age of 25. It can't be right. Let's have some more comments. Where are we? Ronnie Hurst, do you think if there was capital punishment, that would deter this behavior? No, capital punishment doesn't deter people. What capital punishment does is for heinous crimes. And I would put child abuse in this, you know, the kind of grooming gangs style of child abuse. There's no point in keeping them alive. Axel Rudicabana, he should be swinging. He should be doing the Saddam shuffle. But that's not going to stop other people doing it. What could have stopped Axel, of course, was the government, was prevent. But they missed the opportunity 3 times to lock that madman up. Or sorry, boy, as they like to call him. Why? Because they're stuffed full. They're infested with the same rainbow laces in their Doc Martens kind of culture, aren't they? Who elected these people? These people who now tell us what our moral code is, where everything goes but morality and the idea of the rule of law. This is why people don't really respect coppers anymore. I remember when my dad was a copper, we lived in a police house. We never had any money because in those days, coppers got paid nothing. We had a house, a police house. There were 4 of them in the road, in Bulwer Road in Radford. And my old man did the beat, and if you know Coventry, round a place called Jubilee Crescent. He used to have a TARDIS, a police box. I used to love going to see him, and he'd make a brew in there and we'd sit and talk. But when my dad walked round there with Dave Keylock, who was our next door neighbour, he was a copper. They were both on the beat. Remember that idea? When policemen were fit and actually got out of their cars or didn't have a car And they didn't have any radios with them. They had a bloody whistle and a truncheon. And everybody knew me dad. Everybody knew my dad. They also knew he was a bit of a rough diamond. But if there was any problems, they would tell him. And then if there was a scrap in the chip shop across the road where my mate Roman, who I went to school with, he was Polish. Well, his dad was Polish. His dad was a bit, I don't know what, hot-tempered, shall we say. So sometimes there'd be a scrap in the chip in. They'd run over to my dad or to Dave Keelock and say, can you come and sort it out? So over they would run and it would get sorted out. Likewise, when my dad came walking up the street, or Dave Keelock, or the one who lived next, what's the one next door to me on the other side? Forgotten his name, but Andy Johnson, the Johnsons. If you saw his dad, right, and you were playing football on the green where you weren't meant to play football, you scarpered or you hit the ball because you knew you'd get some summary justice. You get a smack around the chops. And there's no point in going home and complaining to you, old man. So you had a bit of fear. And I think we've taken that away. And like today, because those sentences are so weak, it won't send any signal. Like I say, I don't believe they should get the death sentence for this at all. And they might get rehabilitated. However, you've got to look to the parents as well. I'd love your views on this, please. I think this is a great subject. Evening, John, re-reform chairman. It's just a shame they keep having silly issues like with Rupert Lowe before. They need to be squeaky clean, otherwise it just plays into Labour's hands. Well, it plays into the establishment's hands. You're right, Chopper, because already I was reading Nick Robinson, you know, the guy from the BBC. He said, just a reminder, the snooty little twat. He says, just a reminder, Farage always has fallouts in all of the political parties he's run. Well, hang on a minute. So does Labour. Labour's been at war for years with Corbyn and Starmer and Blair. So don't make out it's only Farage, right? It happens. Look what's just happened. How many different leaders did the useless Tories have? And none of them could do it better than the lettuce. So come on. But that's not Nick Robinson. He's meant to be the impartial BBC. He's straight in there, putting the boot in. Because don't forget what I've said. When I say it's the establishment we're up against, that includes the media. That includes the mainstream media. It includes the BBC, ITV, Sly News, all of them, and all the big papers. Well, in fact, all the papers. Because they've all got vested interests. They don't want any real upheaval. And what Farage is promising is major upheaval. But he's going to be a big loss. He's going to be a big loss to reform, as far as I'm concerned. If your children will not listen to you, they won't listen to anyone else, says Ronnie Hurst. That is a very, very good point indeed. And also, allied with that, Ronnie, don't ever try to be your kid's best friend. You're not. You're their dad or you're their mum. And there's got to be that relationship. As you get older, I mean, I hated my dad when I was a kid because of what happened when I got put in care. But later, me and my dad were quite good mates. It can happen later, but it can't happen when they're children. You're the boss. And the old adage, you remember that cartoon? It was before The Simpsons. Wait till your father gets home. It's an American thing. It's kind of true, that cliche. Kids need that. They need it. What they need mostly is love, of course. But love can't be this soppy nonsense where you never tell them off. How many times have I been in a motorway cafe and I hear, well, what do you want, Miranda? Oh, get me this, get me that. No, please, no, thank you, no, nothing. And then you turn around and Miranda's 3 or 4. When a kid's 3 or 4 years old, you don't give them a choice. Well, you do. Eat it or starve. You get the food for them. So many parents are and I see it all the time in this cafe that I go in. They're so busy on their own phones, they buy their kids one to electronically babysit them. How about talking to them? How about getting a colouring book out? How about talking about what they did at school or nursery today? This is what's gone wrong. So it isn't all about beating kids to death. Sorry, that's the wrong thing to say, but beating kids or smacking kids or any of that. Right? I don't agree with smacking. I smacked my kids when I was a young dad, and I was wrong because it was a failure. But once we started getting the code right, there was no need. Have you met a lot of you have met my daughters. They're impeccably behaved. That doesn't mean they don't sometimes get into trouble like we all do. But they know what's right, and they've got manners, and they knew how to sit at a table. And when they're in a pub and I take them out for meals, they weren't running around the pub like kids are now, like feral kids. Because that's it. We've got feral youth, haven't we? The Liberals are reaping what they've sown, says Dave Griffin on Facebook. Very good point. Very few actually got the cane when I was at school, but it was always a deterrent as it was threatened. You're right. It was the ultimate deterrent. Just sitting there, wasn't it? I remember when I used to have to go to Grimes's office and wait for the traffic lights to change, the colours on the door to go in. That was more scary than him actually giving you the cane. That's what you need. The Liberals have gradually eroded everything that acted as a deterrent, starting with corporal punishment and eventually not even being allowed to raise a voice at feral kids. Very, very good point indeed. That is what it's at. That's where we've got to change. Evening, John. The problem in this country is our courts are too soft. We need to be more like America. Our criminals wouldn't survive in American prisons. Yeah, I take on board your point, Steve, on YouTube. But don't we have to intervene before it gets to court? There's a general malaise in society, like these kids who are nicking your phones in the streets, the kids who think it's okay to graffiti. They are all not going to be potential Bhim Kohl killers. But it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? It's like when we were talking last week about people not paying their fares on public transport. It's all part of the same decline in society. Is it morals? Is it ethics? What do you think? Right, so it is Broken Britain, where violent kids become killers, but they still go home before they're 25. It's incredible that kid's going to get home by then. Where the victims are always forgotten, and the message we send is simple. You can get away with anything. We've raised a generation, I've written here, but I think probably 2 generations now. They've got no fear of any consequences. And now the consequences are ours to live with. So what must we do to change? Let's have some suggestions on that. I say you've got to bring back respect. And I think that starts in the classroom, but it also starts at home as well. At home, it should be not a collective, not a bloody cooperative. It's mum and dad. They're the bosses. And you behave. I don't mean sit there and only speak when you're spoken to, any of that kind of 1950s crap. It doesn't need to be that, but it needs to be respectful, doesn't it? And I do think we need to bring back discipline. And I don't mean beating kids, but I mean being consistent with kids. And we need to demand a justice system that actually protects the innocent and their families. Because what we're talking about tonight isn't just about Bhim Kohl, tragic as that is. It's about every single one of us and every single family in the country, which is why I'm trying to not turn it into let's beat Starmer up about it. Because this is one thing that you can't really pin on him. You can pin up that dreadful. That's what I was going to talk about tonight. That dreadful speech by that dreadful woman yesterday, and the whole idea that none of them have got a clue. But this is more important. This is the future of our society. This is the future of the next generation. If you like what I'm talking about, if you agree with me, please press the like button. And if you'd like to donate to keep these podcasts going, we had loads of donations last night. Thank you ever so much. You can do it on YouTube now. Just click the $sign, which is at the bottom of the screen, and do a super chat or a super sticker. You can choose how much you'd like to donate, and then you get your name on the screen and the rest of it. And lots of people, well, not lots of people, 3 people did this. Maggie did it. She asked how to do it. And Maggie, you're a star, because straight after the show, she did it. So thanks a lot, Maggie. you can donate a fiver for a cup of coffee. Yeah, that's how much it is now, or a pint. That'd be a tenner, wouldn't it? Lots of people do 2 or 3, but if you just want to do 1, that's fine. Do what you can afford. Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt, no H in John, of course, and then just donate what you fancy. Where are we now? I knew the man of the Sun who found Jamie Bulger on the railway line. His son never got over it. I bet. Terrible. But when I read lots of books about that, because it was like one of the big stories, they didn't have a great life themselves, those kids. And how do I say this respectfully? Jamie Bulger didn't have a great life either, did he? Including his terrible, horrific death. And it's very easy to think, oh, it's just them. We're not that bad. We're this, we're that. That's why I thought Adolescence was good. I know a lot of people disagree with me, because that just portrayed a normal family where suddenly it goes off the rails. Ego is the massive problem. Everyone puts themselves on a pedestal in their own mind. Fraser, I think that might be right. That applies both to reform and indeed this crime story we're talking about. I think you're right. Nigel, he's now definitely friends again with me, Facebook, says, you're right, John. You treat kids as adults at 18 plus. My old man used to say, when you bring in a wage packet, you can have a say. He was a bit stupid. But anyway, then it makes me wonder nowadays, and police have lost respect now. In my day, I was scared of our local copper. Nowadays, no more local copper on his or her bike. Well, that's interesting you say that, Nigel. You're echoing what the daughter of Bhim said on the court steps today. She said we reported the problems before, the police didn't take it seriously enough. The police have denied that. It's Leicestershire police, by the way. They said they did. And then she also added in, we need more police on the beat. She's right. And also, have you noticed now, the police, I always find it amazing. When I was growing up, my dad had a truncheon, like I say, and a whistle, and he had a cape for when it was cold, right? And he used to go out on the beat or whatever, and a proper uniform, and then a nicer uniform for dress days. But the guys now, and I don't blame them, because they've got to get their stab vest on and everything else, haven't they? But they're like army, aren't they? They look like the army. They look like the military, yeah? So they're more tooled up than ever, often got a taser. But we're kind of less, or kids are less, respectful to them. They ain't bothered. And you know, one of the things I think that's brought that about, this. That's my family on there. Everyone's got, you weren't meant to see that. Everyone's got a mobile phone. So on all these demos, they start bloody videoing. That must be hard for the coppers as well, mustn't it? But there is no real respect for the police anymore. And that breaks my heart. I'm a copper's son. You may think that's nonsense. Kathy W., good evening. What's going on with the Reform Party? Well, the chairman has just resigned, and it's all over what the new MP Sarah said yesterday, which I thought was perfectly legitimate. And I think it should be a reform policy to ban the burqa, or I'd do it wider, ban any face covering in public, of course. But he's got his knickers in a twist. But this follows on, doesn't it, from the Rupert Lowe controversy and the rest of it. Nigel Farage will have to get it sorted out quickly. Let's move now. David Griffin. Thank you, David. See that? He's done a super sticker. He gets a special colour and he goes on the screen, and he's just donated £4.99. So that was on an Apple. It would have been a fiver. Thank you very much indeed. Really, really appreciate it, David. Tell all your friends. Oh, I met a lady today. I won't say where, but in one of my local shops. Lisa said to me the day before yesterday, oh, did you know such and such down the shops? The shop you go in. I said, oh, yeah, I know the woman you're talking about. She said to me today, oh, is it your husband who I always watch on my mobile phone? I think Lisa thought I'd been up to no good. I said, oh, she's talking about YouTube probably. Right, but anyway, I went into this particular place today, and she said, as I was leaving, she said, I love your videos. It was almost like winning a Sony again. Almost. It's so nice when people appreciate and like what you do. It really is. Because I am working my socks off here. So, David Griffin, thank you for the donation. I should take that as a great compliment as well. Jackie Ward says, I'm saddened by Zaya. Is it Zaya or Zia Yusuf's resignation? Just imagine what a forced reform could be if Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, and Zia Yusuf were all together with Farage and the other MPs. They need to put their differences behind them and stop all the falling out. I think that's a very fair point. It's a very fair point. But politics, it's one hell of a bitch fest, let me tell you. Years ago, I was involved with the getting out of the EU. We had a campaign group I was paid for to look after and do their press. And I organised, the guy who funded it was massively wealthy. And I got all the main people in the anti-EU brigade to meet up and have a big lunch. Nigel Farage was there. He was the most reasonable out of them. But all the rest of them, it was like that Monty Python sketch, the People's Party of Judea. They all hated each other, but they all wanted the same thing, which was to get out of Europe. But they didn't want anyone else to take the credit. I found it bizarre. I found it bonkers. Maggie Young, here she is. Prison is not always the answer. That's true. Norway have no prisons. They turn criminals into good people. This poor pensioner, Bhim Kohl, my heart is broken for that family. Yeah, well, I agree with that, Maggie. Listen, when I went in care, I went off the rails. And I got put back on the rails primarily by my auntie, who I didn't even really know, who came down and said, now listen, do you want to come and live with me in Hull? I was in Coventry at the time. I thought, well, anywhere's better than this. So I said, yes, please. She said, but you're going to live by my bloody rules. Now, she was an old-fashioned matron. Ooh, matron, right? Smoked like a trooper. Tough as old nails, right? But she loved me. And since my mum had died all those years before, she was the first one who did love me. She wanted me to become a barrister. I should have taken her bloody advice. I'd be loaded. I'd be doing human rights. You'd all be hating me. But I should have done. But she showed me love and care and consideration and wanted to know what I'd done. But she also wanted me to behave myself. That's interesting, isn't it? And I went to this comprehensive in Hull. It's called Greatfield High. I think they built the Hull Kingston Rovers Stadium on it now. But when I went there, it was two schools together. And it's about 2,000 kids. It was massive. And the headmaster there, he didn't believe in any form of corporal punishment. And where I'd come from, Bluecoat in Coventry, they would give the cane for farting or walking on the wrong side of the corridor. But the discipline at Greatfield High was tremendous. Was just tremendous. Because he and the teachers cared. And like the kids who weren't very academic, he had old cars in the playground and they were taught mechanics. And they were taught how to repair them. And so he played to their schools, to their skills. There was this guy called Trevor. He was as hard as anything, right? But he came to school on time every day because he got to do the cars. So I am with you in a way, Maggie, that it doesn't have to all be heavy, heavy discipline. It really doesn't. You're right. But the problem is with our justice system and our probation service, do you think they're going to do it all right? I don't see. That's the problem. Hi, John, blame the parents 100%. Well, we can't really say that. Are these the same parents that let their kids play games like GTA? What's that? Grand Theft Auto? That's horrible, isn't it? At 10 years old or younger? Not sure what the answer is, but scumbags are breeding as a career. I think that there's some value in what you're saying there. So thank you very much indeed for that. What have I got here? I've got another. Oh, Steve, we've got another fiver. Oh, I can't get it on the screen yet. Hang on a minute. I'll come to it. Wait a minute. I'm only just learning how to do all this. Steve's just donated £5. Steve, thank you very much indeed. He's done it by pressing the dollar button on the YouTube video. And he says, if you have kids, give them a kiss, give them a cuddle. And hey, don't forget to tell them you love them. Have a good weekend, John. Thank you. That's one of the most important things to say. When I got the sack from Talk Sport, because that twat wanted to ban people like my Auntie Rosemary from fostering because she smoked. She never smoked in front of me. She used to go outside the back kitchen, right? But that's what he wanted to do. And so, what was I going to tell you then? It's about... Oh, yeah. So that guy who wanted to ban them smoking, foster parents from smoking. And I got the sack because I called him a Nazi and an ignorant pig. By the way, I stand by all of that. He was. But it's done me good, isn't it? But anyway, what happened was, did you know at that time there were 60-something thousand children in England and Wales alone, only in England and Wales, who didn't have a special person to put them to bed, to tuck them in, to check they're okay, and just maybe to say, so what did you do at school today? How's the rugby coming on? How's the football coming on? Yeah. What's happening here? What's happening there? Right? You know, we all wanted them to go away because we wanted to have a look at our nudie mags, didn't we? But it was just being cared for. And that's what my Auntie Rosemary gave me when I went to live with her. I think she saved me. I think I'd have become a bigger reprobate than I actually became. So you can change. So that lady was right about that. And that's where if you got kids, give them a kiss, give them a cuddle, and hey, well, give them a hug, I say. Don't forget to tell them you love them. It's so important to tell your kids that you love them. I agree. I just hope Ruben Lowe can make a comeback, says Kathy W. I think you forget that. Chopper, what makes my skin crawl just as much as these attackers are the passers-by whose automatic reaction isn't to help or to call an ambulance. Their first reaction is to film it. You are absolutely right. Farage on GB News just now said Zia Youssef is brilliant and he is sad he's resigned. Yeah, I saw that quote from him. Yeah. What else can he say, I suppose, in that situation? So, to conclude about this poor man kicked and slapped and punched to death in a park whilst he was walking his dog. Bhim Kohl, a peaceful, by all accounts, elderly man, well known in the community, everybody knew him, gets kicked to death by feral or semi-feral youth. How on earth have we created a society like this? And how on earth do we now change it? I mean, there's always been violent crimes, back to the Bulgers and Mary Bell and all those things all the way through history. But how do we get back to a situation where kids are kids? Well, I think it starts with parents being parents. Because I don't think we can just sit back whilst the country falls apart or just blame it on all the politicians. It's about time that we stood up and we said, no more. Enough is enough. And it starts with that broken windows policy. See litter on the street, pick it up. I know some of the yobbos left it, but pick it up to make it look better. My wife does this all the time. My daughter does it. Don't just ignore it. Don't walk by on the other side. And if you do agree that Britain is broken and you've got ideas how we can fix it, please subscribe. It's completely free to join and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's called Jon Gaunt TV. So if you're listening on a podcast, when you stop listening, open up your computer, go to YouTube, Jon Gaunt TV, and press the subscribe button. If you're watching now, press the subscribe button now. It's at the bottom of the screen. Doesn't cost anything. We're going to build a massive audience for this show. It's beginning to happen. From the little, no, she wasn't that little, the nice lady in the shop, and I'm not saying where it is. If you're watching, you made my day today, love. In fact, you made my week. In fact, you made my month, I think, when she said, I love your videos, right? I just thought it was brilliant. Right? I mean, obviously, when you are on radio with 1 million listeners, you got that all the time. But it's kind of validated that what I'm doing is worth doing. I've had a bit of a bad day today. I went off to the library to be on my own. I sat there thinking, am I going to carry on doing this? And then when that happened, yes. So I'm Jon Gaunt. This is what they don't want you to say, but I say it out loud, and no one's going to stop me saying it. And we're just going to carry on doing this. So Ronnie Hurst says, your Auntie Rosemary sounds like a great lady. Well, she was, but she's sadly passed away now. But yeah, she certainly sorted me out, that's for sure. And let's finish with Steve back on the screen. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a cuddle, give them a hug, I can't remember what I say now. And don't forget to tell them you love them. Have a great weekend, Steve. Have a great weekend, Maggie, Ronnie, Jackie, Roddy, and all the rest of you. I'll be back on Monday, definitely at 6:30. But I've got a feeling I could well be doing more shows over the weekend. There's so much going down. There won't be one tomorrow. I'm going out with one of my best mates, Bruce. He said, "Do you fancy early doors?" I said, "Yeah, I'll meet at 5:00 in the pub." "No, 3:30, he says. I says, "Well, what?" So I'm going out for a drink with him. We talk football, politics, my podcast, probably. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. Jon Gaunt, the home of common sense, says Ronnie. Thank you. Darren Seal says, "I've just bought you a beer, John." Thank you, Darren. Much appreciated, my friend. I'll put your name up on the screen. "Keep going, John," says Seaside and Mark. Thank you. Nigel, who we fell out, didn't we, Nigel, a few weeks ago, but we're mates again now, because that's the point of the show. If you just tuned in every night and you agreed with everything I said, it'd be crap, wouldn't it? Much better when you think, "That I'm never going to listen to him again," right? You want a bit of that in your life, don't you? I should get paid by social services for keeping you alive, some of you. You know what I mean? Get the old blood running, something like that. Thanks, Gaunty, says Chopper MK50. Right, I am finishing now. If you have got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, hey, hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. 20 likes, that's brilliant. Press the like button before you go. Thank you very much for joining in. I'll see you on Monday, definitely at 6:30, but I'll probably pop up over the weekends. And the only way you're going to know if I'm going to pop up is if you subscribe. So subscribe now on YouTube. See ya.